some interesting news to come out of Washington, D.C., and this has to do with the new BASIS in Washington, D.C. Remember that BASIS Schools has 9 charter schools in the state of Arizona. They recently opened one in Washington, D.C. They're about to open a new school in San Antonio, Texas. And BASIS is now under investigation by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Education for their treatment of special education students in the Washington, D.C. school system. There was a complaint made to the Civil Rights Division because of treatment of special ed students at the DC school. And the office went in, investigated, found that in fact there were not proper services for special education students, that they were being grouped with failing students and not receiving the special assistance that they needed. In response to that, BASIS has now hired a new special education program coordinator and 2 special education teachers at the school, but this raises a lot of questions about BASIS in Arizona and its special education programs or lack thereof. And I want to just read you a quote from the spokesperson for BASIS about what happened in Washington, D.C. This is David Schultz, and he says, "We knew there were areas for growth. We want to get this right. We have an accelerated and challenging curriculum, and we want all learners to have every opportunity to succeed at BASIS." Okay, well, this makes it sound like we wanted to get it right. Well, wait a minute. You've been doing this since 1998 in Arizona. So what has your special education program been exactly in the state of Arizona? You weren't supposed to be reinventing the wheel in Washington, D.C. So when I read that quote, I thought, well, I'm going to take a look at what does BASIS spend on special education in Arizona. And I found something very interesting. If you look at the budgets for each of the schools, BASIS schools in Arizona, you will find that they have budgeted the exact same amount for special education. And it is a measly $20,400. Okay, that doesn't even pay for one special education teacher. Okay. Interesting. And why would it be the same amount for every single school? Every single school doesn't have the same needs. If you're enrolling all special education needs students who come to your school, would they? That was one curious thing. Then I went down and looked at English language learners, another category of children who need extra help. How much does BASIS have budgeted in the state of Arizona for English language learners at all of its schools? 0. None. No money for for education English language learners. Okay? Now, if this was a school system, a private school for instance, that just said, sorry, we don't take special education students, we don't take students who are English language learners, well, that's their prerogative. But this is a public school, and a public school that receives public tax dollars is required to take all students. And in fact, that's what BASIS claims they do. Let's read some of the BASIS rhetoric. Okay, this is what they say. "We will serve students of all demographics who want to learn at a world-class, internationally benchmarked level. The success of our schools in Arizona proves that this curricular philosophy is effective in helping any student succeed." Is BASIS accepting all students and helping any student succeed? What they found in Washington, D.C. is that there was a very high attrition rate of the special education students that they had admitted. 30% of the children left that school. What we see in Arizona is that it's questionable whether they have special education students of any number, and it's very questionable whether they have any language learners at their schools. So what exactly are they doing here? I want to see what the Office of Civil Rights finds in Washington, D.C., and I'd like them to expand their investigation into BASIS into the Arizona schools and into the Texas school that they are now opening. There have always been troubling stories about BASIS and the way that they weed children out. And I think there are some troubling factors here that they don't let certain kids in by saying, sorry, we don't have the services that your child may need if they come to this school. I heard a troubling story today about a child that had been admitted to a BASIS school, and this is someone who did not have special needs, but had just not been doing well last year. This child passed all of their exams. but the school evidently didn't like the child's attitude, and so the child was told at the beginning of this school year that if the child wanted to continue at BASIS, she was going to have to retake all of her final exams at the beginning of this school year. And if she didn't pass all of her final exams, she would have to go back and redo an entire year of school. So when we hear that BASIS is #1 in the country, has amazing test scores, test rates, and they're doing it all because of their exceptional program, and they can take ordinary kids and make them extraordinary academic performers, I think we all need to examine that with a huge grain of salt. And I think that there need to be more inquiries into exactly what happened in Washington, D.C., what is happening on the ground here in Arizona. We know, as we've mentioned earlier, that there is very lax oversight in the state of Arizona. You are not going to find an agency here, unfortunately, that is going to provide the type of inquiry and oversight that the Department of Civil Rights is now performing as to the Washington, D.C. school.
Well, they're certainly not going to be looking at it with BASIS, because that's the primary place where that myth works. The myth that charter schools are better than district schools. Whenever you hear that said, they always say, well, just look at BASIS. They take everybody in, and yet they're considered the best high school in the country. And as you said, they have a very selective system. They don't help out the kids who are at the lower end. And I've looked at their attendance rates at all of their schools. When you take a group of 5th graders and you look at them when they're 12th graders, there are 1/3 as many 12th graders, almost to the number. 100 5th graders, you end up with 33 12th graders. There's this huge attrition that goes on because if you can't cut it, you either leave by yourself or you're told that, as you said, you have to retake the test, you're going to have to retake the 9th grade, something of that nature. One way or another, you're forced out. If they want to do that, at the very least, they have to be honest about it. And parents who are putting their kids in that school should know what they're in for.
Well, when you hear from the Newsweek report, that they're one of the top schools in the nation, you have to remember the small number of students that we're actually talking about, because as you described, we're talking about that Newsweek study is based on the AP, how many students are taking the AP exam, which is done at the high school level. And so if you have winnowed out through all of these methods of attrition your lower performers, then you're really just going to have your top notch at that level.
The first time Newsweek made BASIS #1, it was based on the kids in the senior class, and there were 18 students in that BASIS senior class. What can you say? This is not a school that's doing what it purports to do, and it's a bit of a sham, and the people who are perpetrating the sham should be ashamed of themselves, and others have got to catch on, as people are beginning to catch on, I'm happy to say.
I agree.